right, we'll jump right in this morning to Joshua chapter 1. Again, thank you to each one that was involved in the service to this point. We do appreciate that. And as I said, we are going to try to get through some information today, as there are many things here found in the initial first couple of chapters of Joshua give us a great insight on God's direct working with the people who now have already been established the law, have had Moses who was conducting and directing the people. He has set the foundational work for their faith, and now they are to be putting it into practice. I think that is much like the modern day Christian whom our faith has already been established. We have already trusted Christ. We have made decisions on the direction of our life. But now what? What are we to do? How are we to live in accordance to all the nonsense and chaos that goes on around us? Is it even possible to live a spiritually victorious life? In that I mean, we are not constantly defeated. We are not constantly discouraged by the world's pressures and defenses that they try to get us. If we can somehow keep a semblance of happiness and devotion towards the things of God. And I want to say, is it even possible? And the answer is, it's possible, but that doesn't mean that we'll all find it, and that doesn't mean for sure that we'll all live in it. And this book here gives us an indication. Joshua is now the current leader. Moses, who is a picture of the law, picture of the rules, pictures of what we're to do and not to do, he has passed. And Joshua comes in and says, now, with all that we know and all that we understand and all that we believe, now what? Now what are we to do? And that's how the story starts in Joshua chapter 1. And as it plays through, progresses through the history of the nation of Israel, the early history of the nation of Israel, we find that God says, I'm going to put into action the covenant that I made with you. The if you, I will. If you, I will. If you, I will. This is a conditional covenant that he gave to the Jew. And he says, I'm going to show you how it can work. Now that's where we start. So pay very close attention to the words today. They are very important. Now, that's the first word in chapter number 1. Because we begin to show you. Now, I'm not saying that Joshua is a continuation of the book of Deuteronomy, but it's funny that, not funny, I don't exactly know the word, but that Joshua starts with this, now, after the death of Moses. He says that part of your life is completed. There's no going back. He's not lost. He's not on vacation. He's not retired. He's not available in case you need him. He's not accessible. He is gone. The permanence of that statement. Now what? After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying. So God already reveals to us, Moses is gone. Joshua is going to be the leader. I'm going to speak to him. Remember last week, I'm going to speak to him the same way I spoke to Moses. There's no new revelation. There is no new idea, no new ideals, no new principles. I'm going to speak to him the same way I speak to you, the same way I spoke to him. This is what he said. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise. Seems like a weird or unusual statement. Moses is gone. The one that you look to. The one that was going to lead you into the promised land. The one that was going to... Oh, isn't that... Look at him little legs walking there. Isn't that... I've got the sermon now. You're blind now. I have this little cutie face here. I'm going to bring him up here. I'm not going to smack him. What did I smack her with? A Tootsie Roll? Gummy worm. I won't do that to him. Just let him come up here. And so now he says, I'm going to explain to you that since Moses is gone and now you're the leader, I want you to get up and do something. Do something that he couldn't do. He said, I want you to arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people, into the land I do give to them. Praise again, even to the children of Israel. Every place that your sole of your foot shall tread upon have I given unto you. As I said unto Moses, nothing new, from the wilderness of Lebanon unto you to the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and unto the great sea, toward the going down of the sun shall be your coast. Therefore, there shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so shall I be with thee. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. Be strong and of good courage. For unto this people thou shalt divide for an inheritance of the land, which I swear unto the fathers to give them. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all to the law, which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand, or the left. Thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest, and the book of the law shall not depart of thy mouth. But thou shalt meditate therein day and night. Thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then shalt thou make thy way prosperous, and then shalt thou have good success. Have I not commanded thee? Be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest. The first 9 verses give us an indication that this message is not new. This is not a new revelation. This is not a new command. This is not a new principle. It is not a new guideline, not a new set of goals. This is something he said, I have told your father, their father, their father, their father, their father, all the way back, however many fathers it may be, to Abraham. This is a land I wanted to give to him. But nobody took it. Nobody claimed it. Nobody made the journey. You were content enough to stay in the Ur of the Chaldees, to stay in Bethlehem, Judah, to stay eventually, you got to Egypt. You were content to stay there for hundreds of years. He said you were content to stay in the wilderness for decades. This is the land I'm going to give to you, which I gave to them, which I promised to them, which I promised to them, to them, to them, to them. He said, Joshua, if you want it, all you have to do is take it. If you want it, it can be yours for the head. What do I need you to do? Be strong and courageous. Be strong, know the power and might that resides in me. Be courageous, have the faith to do it, and then do it, because nobody's going to stand in front of you. Nobody can defeat you. Nobody has the power to do it. And he said, but what I want you to do is verse number 7, only be thou strong and very courageous. First it was just be strong and of good courage. Then it was be strong and very courageous. This command is be strong. It's the same. But he said it's going to take some courage now, and very much courage to act on this faith. Because this is the land that you saw some 40 years ago. This is a land that flows with milk and honey. This is a land that flows with prosperous food and victuals and supply. But this is also the land that had the giants, the walled cities, the terrorists, the groups that are undefeatable. So you need to be very courageous in doing it. Okay, I'm going to do it. But before you do, he says, before you go in, he says, remember what Moses taught you. Keep the word of the Lord very close. Meditate upon it. You think about it. Let it go out of thy mouth, and day and night. And then he said, and if you'll do, I will. If you do, I will. If you don't turn, I will make thy way prosperous, and thou shalt have good success. Verse 9. Have I not commanded thee? Again, yes, you've told us all this. Now, what does he say? Be strong and of a good courage. First was courage, then very courageous, But now he changes a little bit again to a good courage. It's not just, I'm going to go in and we're going to win everything. He says that's what you need, and then you need to have the fortitude to express it to your men. But then he said you need to have good courage. That is, you fight the right battles. You are going after the right things. You are doing it the way God would have you to do it. You're not veering to the left, to the right. That's the kind of courage that God wants us to have. Have I not commanded thee? You are the one to do it. I told Moses. I said it to Moses. I say it to you. I said it to Moses' father and his father and father's generations back. No one has done it. Have I not commanded you to do it? I mean, that's what he's saying. How can we obtain spiritual victory if we do not have the courage or the fortitude or the will to accomplish it? It's not that we don't have the strength. Be strong. Be strong in the Lord. Find your courage. Be very courageous. Find the good courage to do it. Because as I have expressed so many times in weeks past and months past, and even years past, and now decade past, it takes a lot of faith to follow after God the way we... I can't even do a deep voice anymore. I'm just so low in the register you won't even hear it. But we can't even do those things because as you move forward and as we go for God, the struggle seems more and more real. And I think the problem is as we age and develop in wisdom, we have a lot more, if you will. I don't want to use it, but it's the only way I can express it. We have a lot more to lose if things don't work out. When you're in your 20s, especially men, we don't grow up till we're in our 30s, the Peter Pan complex, we do what we want. That's why, because we're not on a timeline. I think of Jordan Peterson say, men aren't on a timeline. I don't have to have my life developed and everything at 30 like a woman does, because a woman is on a timeline. She wants to have a career and a family. That has to be done. Tick-tock, tick-tock. That's why they mature a lot faster than us. 20s, men get sow your wild oats and live free and conquer the world because, we have it all the way until we drop over it. And the end of us, we can, our name can live on, we can do it. But not a woman, she's very limited and her life goals have to be accomplished by this age. And I got to get it. I got to get after it. I got to see what needs to be done. But as he says to Joshua, he says, you're a young man. Your life is ahead of you. But don't lose track. He said, stay on the path in which you've been commanded. Don't turn to the right. Don't turn to the left. And if you do what I say, I will make your way prosperous, and thou shalt have good success. He's speaking to the heart of a young man. What young man said, I want my life to be a disaster. I want it to fall apart. But see, he didn't have an army that he had commanded. He didn't have 2.5 to 3 million people he had led. He was living his life. Now, as he develops and becomes a leader, he has a lot more to lose if things don't work out. He has a lot more responsibility. And God says, I need you to have a good courage. A courage to say that I will put that which I have, and that which I oversee, and that which I command, and that which is under me, I will put it in the hands and the trust of God. That's difficult. It's very difficult when we're not used to doing it. He said, it shouldn't be difficult because it's the same thing I told your dad to do. And it's the same thing I told your grandpa to do. And it's the same thing I told your great-grandpa to do. And it's the same thing I told his father, and his father, and his... Now, we can go way back to his fathers, all the way back to Moses to us, especially since we're so young. We can go all that back, and we can say, what this command has never changed. It's always been the same. Go after it. And so, but we understand that in this day in which we live, we're not fighting against flesh and blood. We're not warring against those things. We are warring against something bigger. We talked at length about last week, talked about those things. Even in the midst of battle, though, he says, he that is in us is greater than he that is in the world, which is what? Be strong, but very courageous. Know this, that he that is in you is greater than he that is in the world. Act upon it, which is the courageous part. Do something about it. And so he says, 1 Corinthians 15:57, but thanks be to God, which giveth victory through Jesus Christ our Lord. Now, as this book opens, Moses, the greatest leader that Israel had to this point, has died. The Lord has appointed a new leader, and he has been appointed to take the nation of Israel into Canaan. Canaan land is right there. He says, cross over this Jordan. Well, it's like, hey, what we're standing by, hey, what are you talking about? Yeah, that's right here. Cross over this Jordan River. It's right there. Look over the river. That's where I want you to go. The promised land. Cross the river, get over into the promised land. He said, it's right there. I want you to do it. But you can find victory through Christ, through God. After 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, Israel is about to take possession of the land that God had promised them. He said in Genesis chapter 12, verse 7, and the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, unto thy seed will I give this land, where you're at, this land, the land right here. He said, and there shall build an altar unto the Lord, and it appeared unto him. Now the book here, this book particularly, is about battles that they faced in order to claim the promise from God. Joshua is a book about warfare. It's a book about pain. It's about the painful deceits. It's about suffering and great victories. It is a book that has much to teach modern Christians about obtaining spiritual victory in our lives. It can be done. Now we sing songs about Canaan being the promised land, the land that like unto heaven. That could be, nothing could be further from the truth. We understand that. Canaan, the promised land, is not heaven. Because they fought so many battles. They lost battles. They struggled. And yet what it represents to us is victory. We finally have what God wants us to have on this side of eternity. Victory. He says this land is yours because you can live in victory. This land is yours because you can live in peace. You can live in the promise that I want to give you here on the time side of eternity. It can be there. So as we look at these things, we're going to see here that God's command is very clear. He commanded them to do several things in these first 9 verses. The first being, arise. Moses died. The command, therefore, arise. You're never going to accomplish anything if you don't get up and do it. I don't think it could be much more simplistic than that. If anything is ever going to be accomplished, it's going to be accomplished by getting up and doing it. Now, unfortunately, as we were driving into church this morning, we were talking about the house and all the things that that need to be done and all the things that need to be fixed and all the things. Here's my solution. I came up with this is just my mind. You're going to be amazed by what I thought. We have lived out where we have lived since what year? 2007. So however many years that is, we've lived out there a long time. When we moved out, the place was pristine. The man that had it was retired, and he had to be 170 years old. He was an old man like Ron. He was an older man and had his things established and all this thing, and it was just pristine. But between our property is a huge for me tobacco barn. It stands like 3 stories high. And I've had nothing but struggles with that thing. It has blown down. The roof has blown off. A couple of times the side blew off, and I fixed it, repaired it. Insurance dropped us because of it. It got another insurance company. So here's my plan. Where I decided. The last time we had a little mini twister came through there, blew the first 12 feet off one side of the barn. And I said, well, we need to fix that. We've got to get on and fix that. But that didn't happen. And so we thought about, then the next storm came through, a year or so later, and it blew the front doors, and so the front of it started peeling off. I said, we got to fix that. And here Rachel told me, it's going to fall on my babies. You got to get it done. I said, just keep them away from the barn, it'll be fine. The Lord will take care of it, provide. Well, the last big windstorm we had, the next big windstorm blew the whole top of one side, 12 feet back of the barn. Blew that off. The last storm that just happened a week or 2 ago blew the other side off, and now we have just 4 rotted posts. So here's my idea. You're going to be amazed. Instead of fixing it, you know what I said? Let's just cut the first 12 feet off and we'll start over. Right? Why fix it? That is the ingenious mind that I have. Just cut it down, and it's like the Lord didn't want that 12 feet on there, so He has provided. And so we find here that if anything is going to happen, it's not going to be, if it's going to get fixed or even, now, well, hold it though, I just saw something. The Lord has taken that 12 feet down for us. So I don't have to get up and do it. No, if that thing is never going to get fixed, I'm going to have to get up and fix it. And so my solution is, let's just cut it off. It's just meant to be, it's just taking too much land. It's meant to be to have that. And so if that's never going to get fixed, wood's not going to fly onto it, screws aren't going to go into it, nail themselves, that's just not going to happen. So if it's ever anything really going to get accomplished, then the hands that are going to do it are our hands. The feet are going to do it are our feet. Somebody just buys a whole bunch of acreage, somewhere in south of Campbell County, and has a big house to build and barn. It's just somebody has to get up and do it. Somebody has to take care of it. It's exciting. Let me just tell you guys something. It is exciting at first. But then, boy, it is a lot of maintenance, right? A lot of care, and you better be that personality. Or let the Lord take it down for you and just cut it off when you need to. That's my motto. That's what I've adopted. But he says there's a lot of commands here. The first command is he said, Joshua, claim the land. I want you to claim it. Who's living there? Not you. He said the Hittites are living there. Now, if the Hittites, let me tell you why there's so much conflict. The Hittites have been living there for hundreds of years. Let's say you have a place of property, and all of a sudden somebody comes to you and says, this was promised to me. I know you have it. You've maintained it. You've cared for it for the last 400, 500, 600, 700 years, but it's really mine. Well, wouldn't you say, oh, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I had it. My father gave it to, his fathers gave it to him, and my father gave it to me. How are you saying it's yours? You know what God said? He said, I've let you live there, but it's never been yours. It's never, ever been yours. And I'm going to kick you off of it. No wonder there's great fighting and great division. Whose land is it? Who holds claim to the land? And historically speaking, humanly speaking, it's not the Jews. They've dispersed. The land's been bought and sold. But spiritually speaking, God said that land is mine. And he said it's mine. I claimed it from the beginning. It's where everything started. It's the Garden of Eden. It's where everything transpired. It's been there. And he said, it's never been yours. It's always been mine. And I'll give it to who I want. And he said, I'm giving it to them. So he says, no man's going to stand in front of you. Why would he say that? He said, because they're going to try. They're going to stand up and fight for it. Before we get so judgy or harshy on them, we would too. Somebody come out, something I've sweat for and toiled over and worked hard for, and somebody says, I'm taking it from you. Well, what's the old adage over my dead body? Well, that can be arranged. I mean, that's basically what God said. You want to fight to the death? Fine. Oh, how can God do that? God did it very simply. He said, nobody, you're not going to stand in front of him. You can try. But he said, they will kill you. And they will take your house, and they will take your land, and they will take your animals, and they will take everything from you. You cannot stand in front of him. Now you can leave. If that's what you want to do, you can leave. I'm not leaving. He said, then you'll die. That's the promise. God said, that's the promise I made to Abraham. Because somebody was already living there when he gave it to Abraham. But God said, when I created it, he said that little spot was mine. Those 300,000 square miles, they were mine. Those that lived there, they lived there, but they said it was never theirs, and they never could lay claim to it. It was always mine. And so what happened? He said there's a call to claim the land. The Lord reminds Joshua, he says, this is not a new promise. It's a promise that has been given for thousands of years, but it's never been claimed. And so what did he say? He said, he reminded him, the Lord has already given the land of Canaan to the children of Israel. Moses, the man of God, is dead. He's not coming back. But the work of God must go on. Spiritual victory can be won. Never think for a moment that God cannot make it without you. He can. He can do it because there's a promise already given. And if we don't get it, it's not God's fault. It's already been given. We think, oh, God can't do it without me. God said, let me show you what I'll do. Hittites thought they can't conquer it. And God said, what's the old adage? Move, what is it? The Marines say, lead, follow, get out of the way, right? Or whatever. I don't think it's the Marines. Marines would say that, they're the lower group. We said all these things, and he said, there's nobody going to be able to stand in front of you. There's nobody going to be able to do it. And so he said, I want to show you. So there's a land to claim, but how big is it? Well, it's from the wilderness of Lebanon. He said, to the great river, the river Euphrates, and all the land of the Hittites, and unto the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your coast. He said, the way over there to the west, he said, is going to be the sea coast. He said, that's yours too. And so it's been figured out, as I said several times, 300,000 square miles is for yours for the taking, but God said there can be a lot more. And in fact, they claimed more because some of them stayed on the other side of Jordan. That wasn't promised there, but God let them have it. But he said, let me tell you, if you're going to do it, you're going to come over here and fight for us. And then once we win, he said, you can come back over here and settle here if that's where you want to settle. And so actually, their given land is expanded, he said, because wherever your foot touches, if you want it, you can have it. Now that's quite a promise to a group of people. He said, so you have the strength to do it, but do you have the courage to do it? You have the strength to win, but maybe not the courage to win. And so he said, what I need you to do is I need you to claim the land. Now, we can look around us all the time and see Christians who are defeated and struggling with sins and who, for all intents and purposes, are wandering around in the spiritual wilderness. That's not God's plan for you. God's plan for us is not to live in confusion, not to live in self-doubt, not to live in spiritual wandering. It's not to live in what can I do, what can I say. Someone recently shared with me. He received a text and he said, this man texted him and said, I need to find God again. I just spent the last 30 days in jail. You don't need to find God. God's not hiding. God's not hiding from you. He's not trying not to be found. In fact, he said, look around. You'll see me everywhere. But he said, you don't have the courage to do it. To take the stand. See, courage. The theme of the book of Joshua. Be courageous enough to do it. Therefore arise. You think that didn't take courage? Here, 3 million people stand up who have been used to following Moses. Moses is the man who brought the plagues to Egypt. Joshua didn't bring any plagues. Moses did. And he said, here Joshua stands up and says, all right, men. He says, now I know I'm not Moses. I'm not as old as he, wise as he was. I can't do what he did. But God's called me to be the leader. I'm going to lead you. Well, that must take some courage. Just the arising and getting up part must have a lot of courage. He said that's what you need to do. But he said you can't stop there because you need to claim. You need to claim this land. For 2 Corinthians 2:24 or 2:14, thanks be unto God which always causes us to triumph in Christ and maketh manifest the Savior of His knowledge by every place. You say, what are you saying, Josh? Are you saying that we always have spiritual victory? Yes. But don't mistake spiritual victory for earthly victory because it's not the same. It's not always the same. In fact, it is rarely the same. Spiritual victory is eternal victory. Spiritual victory is victory over spiritual things. How can the Bible say there's not a weapon formed against me that shall prosper? Well, you might have in your pocket, I might have in my pocket, and somebody might have somewhere else something else that could end my life. It can prosper over me. But does it really? Spiritual victory says if you shoot me and I die, spiritual victory says, what did your uncle say? Don't threaten me with heaven. Uncle Dick always said that. Don't threaten me with heaven. As he talked about, he drove down the land, somebody pulled a gun with him. I'll shoot you. Go ahead. Go ahead. What way to live? Well, he's an old man. He can live that way. I'm a young man. Young. I can't live that way. God says, why not? That's good courage. That's strong courage. That's being very courageous. Not to live foolishly, but understand no weapon's going to form against me is going to prosper. Because all you'll do is put me in a better place. Now, it can prosper against other people that aren't saved because it's going to put them in a way worse place. That's why we better know our calling election better be sure. What does he say? He always causes us to triumph. We will always win spiritually when we follow after God. Always, always, always. We'll never live in spiritual defeat. Can we live in discouragement? Yes, we can. We can live there. We can live in spiritual battles and these things. But he says, when you claim the victory that I want to give, you have spiritual victory. Now, what does he tell us here? The next thing he says, nay, in all things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. Now, let me ask you this. if I walk down to this pulpit and I got in an argument and a wrestling match with Thomas, I easily would win, right? I mean, it would not even be close. I would just destroy him. And so I would be his conqueror, right? Now, maybe if I came with Mark, I wouldn't win as much. No, I think I did. Now, if I did, so we'd say, I would be the conqueror. But Christ said, that's not what I want. Because if you did that and fought the physical battle, you would be the conqueror. But nay, we are what? More than conquerors. What's that mean? That means I'm already winning without fighting. I'm more than a conqueror. I don't have to fight him or her no, I don't have to fight you. I'm already victorious. Because I wrestle not against flesh and blood. That just makes me a conqueror. But against spiritual things, I am more than a conqueror. Why? Because greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. I'm just trying to explain to us some of the things you probably heard most of your spiritual life. How to do this, how to do that. What are you talking about? How does it make sense? This is how. He says, because victory has already been given. It's already won. You are already more than a conqueror. 1 Corinthians 15:57, but thanks be to God, which gives us victory through the Lord Jesus Christ. We always triumph because we're more than conquerors, because we have victory through Christ. That's what it all puts together there. Not believe with all of my heart God did not save us to see us defeated. He did not save us to see us refuse to walk in victory. He did not save us and put us in a place of spiritual conquest for every child of God to claim their victory. And the next verses here, as we see, he said, I want you to obtain spiritual victory. How am I going to do it, God? Get up. Get out of where you're at. Pull yourself up on wherever you're at. You're probably discouraged. Why? Moses is gone. He's died. Therefore, now because of that, get up. Because of that, now you have an opportunity to claim a victory. And I don't want to seem too kumbaya-ish here. I've never liked that kind of faith. I don't like it. I've never liked it. Man, we can live in victory. We can literally live in spiritual victory. Does that mean I won't have any strong, intense moments of disagreement with my wife? No, may not mean that. Because I don't wrestle against flesh and blood. And so I could conquer her, or she could conquer me, but that's not who we're to be fighting. I'm to be more than conquerors. We need to see beyond what's causing issues and problems. And that's when that is corrected. Then we have spiritual victory. It's not to say we'll never have any earthly trouble. I mean, like me and you were talking about over here a couple weeks ago, Mark. There's earthly trouble because people are people and people are influenced. And some of the things you said, I was like, man, I'm going to pray that doesn't happen that way or this way or whatever for you. But understand, you can't, some things are out of our control, right? We can't control them. In fact, I can't control what anybody else does. I try to control that young man, but I can't control him. I can't make him do what he's not going to. He can, for a little while, he might be obedient to me, but that's not really controlling him. Because as soon as how many times did I say, oh, it's already 12. We had not gotten out of the introduction. How many times did I say when I was growing up, when my dad was putting this pressure of thumb on me, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. Oh, I cannot wait till I grow up. I'll never treat my sons this way. Never. Same thing. Get up and do this. Get up and do that. Get up and do this. Get up and do that. Why? And it's not the old adage because I said so, but that's what it boils down to, because I said so. Because I understand the reasons behind the pressure and the putting on is not to make our life miserable, which is, maybe for my grandpa a little bit it was, but maybe not for my dad as much for the most part. But, some people get enjoyment out of that, sadistic. Now, I'm not saying he was, all these things, but how you go through this life. And we began to see is, I had just an impromptu job came up yesterday, and I took the boys, and we worked there all day, and the man that we were working for was helping us, and he said, wow! He said, I've never seen two young men work as hard as this. And Jasper pipes out, well, we didn't hardly do anything today. We didn't hardly do anything. And he said, boy, your dad gets on, don't let you do that. I said, he said, if you don't do it, he'll fire you. And I said, no, if they don't do it, I'll never fire them, which means you have to work with me forever, right? I mean, what a eternal punishment that must be. But we understand that the principles we're trying to teach are something far greater. It's not just do this, get up, take this out. I'm not going to air dirty laundry, but one time I was a relatively young man, probably 15. I was innocent as can be. Didn't talk back. I was just the sweetest boy you ever could imagine. Well, one time came home. I was supposed to bring them. I fed the animals. Obedient, went over, no complaint, fed the animals. And each day you're supposed to bring a bucket back. So you put the scraps in, and you took them down to the pigs to feed. And man, I just forgot. I forgot to do it, and it must have been winter because it was dark. And I think my loving mother said, Josh, where's the bucket? I forgot to bring it. Well, I need the bucket. Lord forbid we threw them one time out the door, let the raccoons eat them. We couldn't do that. I'm not trying to be anything. But she said, you're going to go back there and get a bucket. Now, that's unusual for my mom because, she was usually on my side for everything when I was so sweet like that. And she made me, now listen to this now. She made me go over in the dark. When I am terrified of the dark, I was only a little baby at 15. I was a little terrified. Had to walk over down this creepy path, down that little steep hill, across the road, down another little thing. And here's it's got to be a haunted garage. Down there, and guineas, and a raccoon there scurrying around. And I grabbed this bucket. The whole way back, I just praised the love of my mom that I had. Well, I'm just so thankful for my mom. I'm so thankful that she made me do that. I said, I don't know why they hate me this way. I don't know why I can't wait till I get out of here. 18, I moved out. I said, I'm out of here. I moved out and tried to move to Chicago, and here I am living 3 miles from my mom and dad, all because they're trying to see that you had a responsibility. Now, here's what you need, Josh. You need some good courage. Arise, get up, and go do what I said. See, it's the call to claim spiritual victory. Spiritual victory is something that is learned because it's not just simply given, it's obtained. Victory is given, but it has to be claimed. Victory is there. Salvation is spiritual victory, but everybody doesn't get it because everybody doesn't claim it. Everybody doesn't call unto the Lord. Whosoever shall call, for that's the key. For whosoever shall call, they shall be saved. Whosoever shall knock, the door shall be opened unto them. Whosoever confesseth with their mouth, it is them who are saved. Spiritual victory is already there. It is accessible, it is available, but it is not always taken. And it must be learned and obtained. See, sometimes we think that I don't say most of you, but lots of you have been here for a long time. And I really pray to God that you don't feel it is my pleasure to preach hard things that I know we struggle with and blast it. I try not to do that very hard because I'm sensible enough to know that, man, we all struggle. But I've been to a lot of places, and if we see something in the church that we can get on and hammer on for a while and beat for a while, and boy, they just blast and blast and blast and blast and blast and blast. And finally we learn and we say, well, I'm glad I learned that. But there's a lot of things in life that are there for the taking. And we don't get. We don't take. We don't accept. The lesson was, all you needed to do, son, was bring back what I asked you. That's here. And if they will do whatever is written therein, then I will make your way prosperous. If you're going to obtain spiritual victory, you must learn to be spiritual. Learning to be spiritual is not, I'm mystic in the angels, I have so many pictures, I love it so much. No, that's not spiritual. Learning to be spiritual is, when defeats come, earthly defeats come, understand, God's not forsaken me. I think some of the hardest and greatest spiritual lessons come when things work out Whoops, 360 is one, so 180 degrees different than we thought they would, and we still have faith to follow. It's like, what now? God said, this now. It's okay. You've led me out of the promised land. Let me give this example. Don't worry. You led me out of the promised land, and now I'm at the Red Sea. Oh, thanks. Thanks, God. Wasn't enough if we just died, and at least we could have lived a fuller life. We'd have been miserable slaves, of course, but at least I would have made it past my whatever birthday. Thanks for leaving me out here to kill me. And God says, why don't you just go forward? How foolish. Years and years ago, one of the first sermons I ever preached here, doesn't God see the sea? You know why I don't go forward? There's a sea in front of me. I will drown. I will die. That's why I don't go forward. It's like God said, who told you couldn't go forward? That was my command. Go forth out of Egypt. Did you ever try to go forward? Why would I try to go forward? There is a sea in front of me. We will die. I cannot go forward. And God says, why don't you try to go forward and see what I'll do? And so they stepped forward, and all of a sudden the lands were revealed and the waters were dammed up. And God said, the command was always to go forward. The victory was always there. But nobody had the courage to do it. And so what did Moses do? God said, hold out your staff. He said, hold it out. And when your feet of the men bearing the ark touch it, he said, it will divide. And that happened again numerous times in the Bible. He said, the victory was already there, but he said, so many are just content to be slain in the wilderness, to stay there on the brink of the Red Sea and let Pharaoh and his army just kill them because I'm already dead anyway. What's the point? That's why we live in spiritual defeat, because we're already defeated anyway. I'm not talking about death. Now, let's back up a little bit and say, I'm already defeated, so what's the point in suffering another spiritual defeat? I'm already hurt, so what's the point in suffering another spiritual hurt? That's what we're already living. And God said, why don't you just go forward then? Why stay here and let them devour you? Why stay here and let it overcome you? Why stay here? Moses is dead. There's no going back from that. There is no recovery from that. Therefore, arise. Just think about the harshness of God. It's, I forgot the bucket. Get up. Go get it then. Well, how could you say that to me? Don't you love me? I will get attacked. I will get... Where were the abductors, when I was a kid? They sent me out all the time in the dark. No, don't lock the door so they not to get you. Where were they in my day, right? Nobody ever tried to get me. I don't know why, but nobody ever wanted me. Get up and go do it. Moses is gone. Okay? It wasn't dependent upon Moses. The victory was there long before Moses ever came and was stopped short. So now you get up and do it. That's how you obtain it. What to God was just given, and spiritual victory is not given. Victory is available, but it must be obtained. It's like, I'm just thinking about, they bought the property, just thinking about when we bought our property and went out and, had the big auction. Boy, it was exciting. Thinking about, man, I'm excited. And sat down and, that first, we had a little trouble with the closing. The first 3 or 4 weeks, boy, it was exciting. Drove past, look, we're going to do here. This is going to be awesome in this beautiful place. Well, we got down to the closing. And it was a relatively, I think it was a fair price, a little higher than I wanted to pay, but we got down to the closing and bring all the paperwork in, it'd be quick, only 3 hours ago. We had 800 pages to sign, We got down to the financing part and it was like, all right, sign here, sign your Josh, sign Joshua, sign your initials, sign. We want to make however you decide to sign. We're going to have it here. We're going to pay it. And I'm going to think, if you just make the monthly payment for the next 30 years, you're only going to have to pay back $364,000. And I was like, where in the world did this come from? Now, granted, now we'd probably sell the place for that, double our money, But, to sit down, and we're so excited to put our name on a over $250,000 loan, if we took the bank. Well, I'm sorry, I was so excited, we signed the paper, we went out, we bought the paint, came in, I laid on the floor, looked up, and she said, get up paint, I don't paint, I'm just enjoying. Wow, I just signed my life away, And how exciting it is because we took a step of faith, if you will. That's where you can live. It's exciting, right? When you get something and it cost me, but I've dreamt about it and desired it and wanted it and worked hard for it. And God said, that's where you can live in spiritual victory. But you know one thing, it will cost you greatly. But it's there. Just think about that. If you own something, especially land. However long ago that God created that little parcel of 20 acres that we own, that was part of that creation. Let me tell you, and I own a piece. And I own a piece of it. Yeah, it's expensive, and yeah, it's troublesome, and yeah, it causes a lot of issues. But it's exciting. God said that's like the obtaining of the spiritual victory. You have to have courage to take a step like that. Faith to take a step like that. But think about that new and exciting, that process of going through it when you begin to understand that this is what God had in mind when He said, I told it to Moses and his father and his father and his father. It's the same I promised to Abraham, but nobody ever took it. Therefore, get up and get it. That's the call to claim the land. There's only 66 more points in the sermon. We'll get through it here. By the end of the year, we'll finish this sermon, and then we'll move to the battles, which was always looking forward to, the battles in Joshua. Let's pray. Father, bless us now. Thank you for your word. Thank you that we can enjoy, or at least I can enjoy preaching, but we can enjoy listening to your word, what you have in store for us. Because, I think we so desperately need spiritual victory. It's there, but so few claim it. And even fewer then retain it and live in it. It's a process. It's not easy. It takes courage, very courageous, strong, and good courage to do it. It's the courage to get up. It's the very courageous to go in, but it's the good courage to keep it. Have I not commanded thee? It's yours. Father, help us to see that. Help us to live in that. Bless each one who is here. Let us move forward steadily through the Red Sea, through the Jordan rivers, through the trials, the heartaches, burdens. Let us truly obtain spiritual victory. We ask now these